My name is Francesco Mureddu, and I'm the organizer of this seminar, which is entitled "How to Evaluate Social Innovation: The Dynamic Evaluation Approach." So this seminar is the first of a series of two webinars within the scope of the Emergence by Design project. And we are here in the headquarters of Open Evidence, which is a partner of the project in Barcelona. And the hashtag for the event is hashtag MDDE, so MD Dynamic Evaluation. So this is the program of the webinar. First of all, there will be an introduction and sharing by myself, in which I will highlight the purpose of the webinar and the project. Then there will be a keynote by Paolo Gurisatti, who is the project manager of the project, and also an intervention by Valentina Zoise, who is a researcher for MD. And then the floor will be open for questions and a structured discussion. So first of all, I will say something on let's say the ratio of the project. So this project, Emergence by Design, starts from the fact that the imperative of our society is continued economic growth, and the engine of the growth is basically innovation. An innovation which is driven by market values rather than societal values, so that this innovation can have unintended and socially suboptimal consequences. There are many tools and channels for market-driven innovation, but there is the need of both a theory and new tools to help social innovators to face their challenges and to improve the understanding of how innovation acts in societal systems. So the needs of social innovators are, for example, how can they assess in real time the impact of social innovation activities? Or how can they evaluate projects which evolve in an innovative setting, where goals are emergent and changing rather than fixed and predetermined? Or how they can anticipate unexpected results and unintended cascade effects of their innovation. In order to address those needs, the MD project is supporting the creation of ICT tools that enable the collection and elaboration of different information, so that the innovation process can be adapted and steered toward the creation of social value and socially sustainable innovation. Within this scope, the MD project has designed this set of methodologies and tools for what is called dynamic evaluation, which provides real-time feedbacks to innovation projects, initiators, and design, as well as to all the people that are basically directly and indirectly affected by innovation processes. At this point, I give the floor to Paolo Gurisatti, who is going to introduce the theoretical background of the project and the dynamic innovation evaluation approach. Paolo, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I hope everybody is listening to what I'm saying. And unfortunately, I have a very restricted band, not a wide band, and so I cannot show myself in the pictures. And I proceed introducing the discussion, remembering to everybody that what we intend for dynamic evaluation of innovation processes, generally speaking, not only social innovation processes. The idea is to focus not only on the elements that differentiate a given situation ex post with respect to the same situation or a well-known situation ex ante. So we are not just comparing two pictures, but by the dynamic evaluation approach, we want to document the process of change that occurs in the transition between the initial and a final situation. So the idea is to describe the story of an innovation process more than the final results. Since our idea is that having a final output, a final result, what is important socially are the change in the agent's identity during the process, a change in the attribution of coming to being new artifacts, changes in relationships in the hierarchy of the participant to not only to the project but to a common space. So the idea of dynamic evaluation is not only to measure or to evaluate the changes or the final output of a process, but to learn something about the process, to document the evolution of the organism, the community that has been involved in an innovation process. From this point of view, dynamic evaluation, from our point of view, is closely concerned with the term of social innovation. So documenting the evolution of a society, of a community, is the aim of this kind of approach. And we think that this is helpful for not only for the designers and the participant to an ongoing process, innovation process, but for example to policymakers wanting to check what happened during an innovation process. They funded a policy they wanted to perform in a long period of time. This is basically what we wanted to do, and in order to enable policymakers, designers to check the evolution of the project and the policy they implemented or are implementing, we think it's necessary to follow 5 steps that we have implemented in an ICT platform that is guiding, supporting, say, the practical work of a designer, a policymaker, and of dynamic evaluators who are members of what we call a task force for dynamic evaluation, and a team of different roles following the evolution of a project and performing different tasks. The first step that the task force of designers, policymakers, say, or dynamic evaluator must face is the mapping of the agent artifact space. Of course, we are using words like agent artifact space, concepts that are concerned in a theory developed by a group of scientists in 3 different projects starting from the year 2003. The projects are ISCAM, Insight, who are concluded, and MD, Emergence by Design, who is going to finish at the end of this year. So I'm going straight with these concepts. I know that they cannot be easily understandable by everybody, but having only 10 minutes, so another 5 minutes from this moment, I would just to go straight to the end, and then we can comment. Mapping the agent artifact space means to prepare a repository containing all the documents produced by the participant to an innovation process, from different kind of documents. And the preparation of this repository means to identify and select some indicators that are quantitatively giving a feedback on the position and the action of the participant, to entry data into a database connected to the repository, so to create a database that is a tool describing who are the core agents of the innovation process, who are the marginal agents of this innovation process, and is a database finalized to describe what are the narrative structures, so the plots, the the set of roles and actions that are driving the participant to the project. Then we have, say, in this phase of mapping the agent artifact space, an action performed by the dynamic evaluator. So that is the cross-checking between the narrative structure that is describing the evolution of the project, the evolution of a policy, with the data available in the database and the repository. So there is a first work to do, that is to populate a database and analyze and measure the quality of the database with the description of the story, of the evolution, the narrative of the project, the policy that he has observed, project of innovation, policy of innovation. Then a second step is this, to compare the narrative structures emerging by analyzing the available data with a set of archetypes of narratives describing similar situations, similar evolution, similar stories of innovation already available in literature or in the database of narrative structures, so archetypes that step by step will be accumulated in the platform of the MD project. And by comparing the narrative, say, emerging by the analysis of data with this set of already existing narratives, we can, well, the dynamic evaluator and the policymaker can better understand what happened in reality. So what are the characters, say, in a sociological approach? So the typical characters participating to the specific innovation project, and if in real life, in the real project, by looking at the repository and the database, the real people participating to a specific story were performing like it happens in the theory, in the typical situation, or they were able to invent or to perform say, new narrative structures, so deviations from the traditional narrative. Here we have a third set of tools. What I was describing now is the second step, to compare what's emerging by the database with existing other stories. Then we have a third set of tools that are providing the analyst and the designer with several other measurements of the general potential existing in the community of the participants, so several other data describing what changed in the story, what changed in the set of attribution to the identity of the participant, to the functionalities of the artifacts and so on, and other context information. And all these measurements should describe, we are still in the middle of the development of these tools, should describe using tools like the social network analysis and others, the evolution of the community of people, of agents who participated to a specific, 1 minute, to the specific story we are telling. At the end of this third step, the dynamic evaluator can monitor, can compare what happened, what is right emerging by the description of real story with, say, the typical stories, the existing best practices of narratives, and check the existence of an innovation process. So the fourth step consists in comparing, say, the existing narratives with what happened during the project, and this is giving a feedback to the readers, to the listener of the story, to the observers, in terms of deviation, the emergence of new stories, of new evolutionary tracks that were not present before the project of the policy. And at the third, as a fifth and final action, the dynamic evaluator can give a feedback to the participant in terms of a report and several other documents that are related to the work done in the previous phases. So, concluding, we have prepared a handbook and a platform that are supporting designers, policymakers, and dynamic evaluator to analyze this key point: the stories, the narrative structure, the narratives, the evolution of communities participating to innovation processes. And now we are going on with the alpha test and beta test of our platform, checking with possible users the real and good functionalities of these 5 steps, 5 tools in the platform. This is my presentation, and I think that Valentina can complete this presentation with some comments connected to real case studies.
Thank you, Paolo. So now, yes, please, Valentina, can you elaborate a little bit on the case studies? Could you just first introduce yourself and your expertise?
Yes, sure. I'm a sociologist, so I have a background in social sciences, and more in particular, I've been focusing a lot on participatory and qualitative methods. And within MD project, I've been working together with Stefania Sardo, who is here with us today. And we have been working to develop the MD approach, observing a specific case study that was the Green Communities project at the very beginning. And then we have been following also other case studies, because our idea was that a good approach to the observation of innovation processes could be done just observing real cases and not just referring to the theory. So we have been working on a project that was ongoing at the moment, and this was the main difficulties. This presented the main difficulties, because if we go back to the steps that have been described by Paolo, and we start from the very basic one, that is the mapping of the agent artifact space, when we work on a project that is ongoing, also the preparation of the repository is something that is quite complex, because a repository can be fed and populated by different kinds of documents, different kind of materials that will depend on the kind of projects you are working on or you are observing. If it is a project or a longer program and so on, it will you will have different kind of sources of information. So they can be interviews, official documents, websites, statistical data that can vary a lot from the on the availability, accessibility of them. How systematic is this source of information? So the kind of data we can collect from them. So this is quite a complex, quite complex task that requires a lot of time, because it has to be designed. So also also the plan to feed the repository has to be designed specifically for that project or for that policy and so on. Obviously, these vary a lot if we are observing something in real time, or if we are analyzing ex post projects or policies and so on. In this case, obviously the work to do is much easier. Then another important element in the very first phase is the identification of and selection of preliminary indicators. As we know, any evaluator, any policymaker has its own positioning in a project or in a process, and we have to take account of this. It's something that is good or bad, depending how much we are aware of this positioning. So we have to select a number of indicators that will probably refer to the prejudice or to the previous knowledge we might have about a specific context or how we call it, the specific zone of the agent artifact space a certain project or process want to address. And then we have the data entry that is a kind of always not a very easy task, but again, this task will be more or less easy depending on the selection we have been doing in the previous task. So if we have been able to select a number of, for example, core agents, and we start focusing on them, and then we have already a number of narrative structure that we imagine that could be more influent than other in guiding a certain project, probably we will go faster if we are, let's say, in a very complex situation where the narrative structure are very difficult to detect, and as well as it's difficult to understand what are the core agents that are having a role in the project. It will be much more difficult. Also the data entry. Then the second phase again is the one of the identification of the narrative structure. Is a very, let's say, sensitive phase because, as I said, any evaluator has previous knowledge and might start to, let's say, provide some provisional hypothesis of what are the guiding narratives of a certain projects and so on. But this identification is crucial and might depend a lot on the expertise the evaluator has and on the knowledge of the context he is analyzing. And when I talk about knowledge, I also refer to the specific language of a context. So the identification of the narrative structure can be done, let's say, at the desk, but it has to be continuously checked on the field. And this is something that requires hard work and a lot of time. Again, I want to go very quickly to the third phase, that is something again quite critical. That is the measurement of the generative potential of relationship in a community. As we said, dynamic evaluation is very committed to study the dynamics that lead, let's say, from a step to another. So the more to look at the process as a whole and to the transition from a phase to another rather than to the final outcomes. And the relationship within the community play a relevant role, and they are again, once again, they are very much specific from project to project. So when we say, for example, measuring the generative potential of a relationship, although we have a theory to refer to, that is the one developed by David Lane and Bob Maxfield, about the main five components of a relationship to be potentially generative, we have to think that these components vary. I mean, the indicators we have to look at for each of these components vary from project to project. I make a very quick example. One of the main components is heterogeneity. The other one is mutual directness. The third one is aligned directness. The fourth one is the structure of permission. The fourth one is the possibility of the opportunity of joint action. If we take the first one, that is one that we might think that is very easy, let's say heterogeneity. It can vary a lot. We may refer to the heterogeneity in terms of gender, for example, or in terms of I don't know, level of education. It will vary a lot from project to project. So taking in mind that we have these five main components to take into consideration, for each project we have then to identify the relevant indicator of each one of these five components, because they are the one that will determine the evolution also of the relationship, and if this relationship will be potentially generative or not. So again, if we, this is something quite critical, because operationalizing the generative potential is something that is quite difficult, non-trivial at all, and again, the other issue is that we want to look at the dynamic, so how relationship develops in time, and this again largely depends on the accessibility of this data, of the data that we require, that we need to assess and to measure this potential. So, for example, in some cases we might have quite easy access to information and to data. So, for example, I may know very easily the level of education and how this level of education might develop, but it can be very difficult, for example, in terms of, I don't know, the joint action opportunities. If we consider among the joint action opportunities, for example, the exchange of communication, like the email exchange, this can be quite difficult, for example, to collect, although we have more and more complex system that allow us to get in real-time information like this. It's not always that easy to get and to access such relevant information, because maybe, I don't know, I'm not allowed to collect information from emails, since they can contain sensitive information and so on. So this is something that is critical, but it is very relevant in order to measure the potential of a relationship within a project. And then again, the fourth, am I going too fast? No.
Yeah, if you could please conclude.
Yeah, and the most challenging one are the fourth and the fifth phase again. Once we have compared, let's say, the narrative structures that we have detected, and we have done what we call the mapping with this tool that we have designed in MD, that is called the storyboard, where we try to visualize in a very schematic way the pattern that is developing, the narrative pattern that is developing, and we want to map this pattern using the data that are available in the database. Well, we are doing a work that is let's say, at the frontier with the, let's say, the check of the coherence, internal coherence of a narrative. That is something, again, non-easy, but that can help us to, that can be very important to understand if something new is emerging, or if we are in front of something that is reproducing itself again and again. But another important aspect of this is not just the analytic aspect. So it's not just a matter of the evaluator checking the coherence and checking the deviance from an, let's say, an archetypical narrative, the difference from the archetypical narrative to the enacted narrative, to the narrative, let's say, enacted by the people participating in a project. But these, I mean, the visualization of these can be used with the participants. And with participant, I refer to the designer of a project, a policymaker, as well as the people the project is oriented to, is addressed to. So visualization can help to create a kind of common ground to understand better what is the, let's say, the logic that is behind the whole project and the whole process. And so these lead me to the final phase, that is the feedback. And with feedbacks, we refer more in particular with a cycle of feedback. So the generation of continuous feedbacks, feedback loops that can or improve a policy or a number of policies that have been already implemented. So to design, in order to design better future policies, or to steer and to adjust a process that is ongoing. So this is my presentation and my comments to what Paolo has already introduced.
Thanks a lot, Valentina. So now follows 5-10 minutes of questions to the panelists. If anybody wants to address a question to the panelists, can just type the question in the window question of GoToWebinar or in the chat, and I will be happy to forward it to the panelists. Is there any? Yeah. So we have a question from Laila Puyol, who is an expert in social innovation and entrepreneurship. The question by Laia is addressed to Paolo and to Valentina. So the question reads, could you share an example of value added of dynamic evaluation versus traditional output evaluation in a concrete case?
Can you repeat, please?
Could you share an example of a value added of dynamic evaluation versus traditional output evaluation in a concrete case?
Okay.
So basically, which is the advantage in using dynamic evaluation with respect to traditional output evaluation to evaluate a social innovation project in a concrete case?
I may cite one case I'm involved at the moment, is concerned with the evaluation of a policy in Italy. Investments in 15 years in infrastructures supporting local development in southern Italy, performed by local agencies, charged with the responsibility of investing in these infrastructures. We can traditionally, by following a traditional evaluation process, check what these agencies did in terms of infrastructures built and what kind of beneficiaries companies they affected. Or we can try to describe the story of these kind of agencies in 15 years, how they changed, what kind of narrative pattern or say way of acting they followed, and if at the end we have not only new infrastructures for development but also societies of local policymakers and companies sharing a new perspective on development. This is a concrete case, but we can mention other cases if you
No. Thank you. We have then another question by Magda Jagielska. So the question reads, what is the most important priority in terms of the future usage of dynamic evaluation, and how can we improve it further?
Valentina, go ahead.
Okay, the most important priority, once we have, let's say, designed the approach, the priority at this stage of the project is that, technology is not fast enough as the approach. So, for example, if we all the phases that we have described can be eased or not, depending also, but not, I mean, not just, also on the availability of ICT that are flexible enough for the kind of approach we have designed. And this is not always that easy. I mean, there are a lot of improvements, and within MD, we are doing a lot. We have been designing also features and tools from scratch. We have been designing a new language, the A4 language, to describe the narrative structure and to visualize it. But this is something that requires a lot of time. So I would say that now one of the priority is this, to have the possibility to improve this part in order to be able to check the feasibility and the added value, the real added value of dynamic evaluation for ex post evaluation, for example, or for ongoing evaluation. That is what we are really willing to do, and MD is been focusing for so long time.
Thank you. Thank you. We have another question by David Osimo, who is a partner of the project and expert of e-engagement. So the question is, has dynamic evaluation been invented by the MD project? So the concept has been developed within the scope of the MD project.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, you are too positive. I think that several other people are concerned with the idea of monitoring a project during its evolution. In project management, there are several attempts to do this. What I think is a novelty, something new in the MD project, is the idea to compare narrative patterns. So the story, to use the stories as a key for understanding innovation processes, and also to help project managers to better manage an evolutionary and innovative project.
Okay. We have also 3 questions by Margherita Russo. So the first question, Margherita asks if it's possible to perform a test, a dynamic evaluation test on the alpha test itself.
You mean using the platform, the MD platform that we are developing?
Well, yeah, I guess she's, yeah, she means that.
Okay, so at this stage, not all the, since some of the tools are still under implementation, not all of them are fully integrated one each other. So if you want to perform a test, it would be partial. Okay.
Okay.
So this is.
I think you can use the A4 platform, so the tool for describing the story. It's working and is providing you with the feedback after designing the pictures of the scenes of the story, the fundamental stages of the process. And then you can use the database and cross-checking these two parts. Unfortunately, we still are under construction with the say the data representation. So the data in a social network analysis approach, sharing or showing the evolution of the network. This is not still it is not still working.
I see. Another question by Margherita is if it's possible to use the dynamic evaluation tool to map not only people, but also organizations which have multi-level structures. How would you elaborate on that?
Oh, this is a key question. Thank you, Margherita. We have to carefully check what happens in implementing this kind of system in a hierarchical situation. But for example, we checked the possibility of using this tool in the dynamics of a, say, competitive community, like the community of a district, several that not system, but
Hello?
yeah.
Okay. No, I could not hear you for a while.
Well, the connection here in Italy is always a coincidence.
Okay, we have another question by Tito Bianchi. Tito asks if the ICT infrastructure or specific software is essential to perform this kind of evaluation. So if the evaluation can be performed without an IT infrastructure, a specific software, and can be done only in a, let's say, discursive way.
Well, of course you can, but since you are managing too many data profiles of possible participants, when you are sharing or using or comparing data reflecting the situation of, say, 100 participants, of course, the ICT tool is essential.
Okay.
Yes, it's a, let's say it's a very relevant support, also because if we want to look at the evolution of the dynamic, so we want to follow the evolution of relationship or the change in attribution, the change in the identity of the agents, having the support of an ICT infrastructure can ease the process a lot, the process of the evaluation, obviously.
And if I may add something, I see that the rigidity of the ICT system is forcing you to be more precise in designing relationships, for example, or attribution among participants, and cross-checking that with your database. So the traditional rigidity of an ICT system in this case is supporting a more, say, clear and analysis, more, say, logically coherent analysis.
Okay.
Yes, and I would add something to this last comment of Paolo, that is not only a cross-checking between, among the data, but also an intersubjective cross-checking, because we are designing an ICT platform that has differentiated rights of access. So, for example, for the evaluator, for the participant of a project, for the project manager, and so on. So, imagining that that all these this profile can access part of the information stored, we have also an intersubjective cross-checking of the information. So we can try to also escape some of the narrative traps that are part of anybody, of any of us. So this is useful also for this.
Okay. So we have another question by Gianluca Misuraka, who is a senior scientist at the GRC IPTS of the European Commission, who is the leader of the research project ISIS. So basically,
dangerous project.
Yeah. Yeah. So ICT enabled social innovation in support of the social investment package. And in the first phase of the research, which was earlier this year, the project mapped the promising initiatives in the field and developed a database of 150 cases on integrated approaches to social services. And for example, inactive and healthy aging, long-term care for older people. And do you think that you can use dynamic evaluation to evaluate so projects in this field? So inactive and healthy aging, long-term care.
Oh, I'm convinced, yes. The answer is yes. Of course, we must wait for the final implementation of the platform. Not today, I think, I hope, at the end of the year.
Okay, I see. Yes. Okay, then we finish, and then we finish with three questions by, well, some questions by Christian Mancinone. One question is, do you think that the tools can be used to study open innovation process in corporates and firms, or the evolution of startups?
Yes, the answer again is yes. We have been, we started to design this platform having in mind, say, the work of the project manager, say, the designer of an innovation process, who wants to provide the participant to the process with the convincing story, to go somewhere in a situation of ontological uncertainty, and a designer who wants to continuously check how is, in which way its actions, the artifacts produced, even the Gantt of a project, can affect the identity and the vision and the story, the interpretation of the other innovation process participants. So I think that you can use the platform and the approach of MD, of the dynamic evaluation, also to check, already concluded projects or policies, but the tool is useful exactly for the people wanting to support the startup of a new community or a new company.
I see. And do you think that it can be also used for coaching purposes?
Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely yes.
Okay. So now we open the discussion to the floor. So everybody that would like to say something, to intervene, can just use the button raise hand, or can ask to speak in the chat of the system, so that then everybody can take has the possibility to speak. And a question that was raised by David Osimo can be used also to ignite the open discussion. So the idea is that dynamic evaluation is something that should be additional to traditional evaluation, that should be something more useful, something more. So which are the risks that are related to the traditional evaluation that we would like to offset by using dynamic evaluation, for example? Who would like to intervene on that?
In terms of risks, I may say that since entering the perspective of using narratives or analyzing narrative patterns implies a deep understanding of, well, a new approach, to word, say, to interpretations, a sort of new Weltanschauung. Is not easy to make this kind of tools used by enter brackets, traditional evaluators or policymakers. And the risk is to have great misunderstanding. So the recommendation is to arrive to the use of this platform after having approached the general theory of social innovation and innovation society that we have developed in ISCAM and the Insight project.
Okay, but do you think that dynamic evaluation is complementary to traditional evaluation, or it substitutes completely the old approach?
I'm personally thinking that he is going to substitute it, that because traditional evaluation is ex post, checking if the promised targets are achieved or not, if you spent the budget available to achieve those targets, and is not concentrated on the story, on the evolution of the community that that was involved in the achievement of such results. And the idea is that by understanding these, you can also understand what will be the chain, the cascade of consequences of the new token, the new invention that the project has produced. And this is something alternative to traditional innovation analysis or evaluation.
Okay. Dr. Misuraka would like to say something. Please, the floor is yours. Gianluca.
Hello, good morning.
No.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
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 Okay. Yeah. So just I wanted to jump on this last issue also, I mean, for a very selfish question, as Francesco said, reporting my question before, I'm leading this project. Yeah, very easy, very risky, because it's called EASIS, although we are thinking of changing the acronym, of course. But the second objective of this project is, in fact, to develop or attempt to develop a kind of evaluation framework to assess the impacts of ICT-enabled social innovation. That, of course, is quite complicated, especially as you have just pointed in the policy making arenas. It's difficult to adapt some innovation. So I was wondering whether your approach is actually able to go from the micro level that I understand you are assessing project, I mean, or initiatives at this, you know, on their own, to a more meso or macro level, so linking to potentially to policies of member states or that are trying to, let's say, address the various challenges we are living today.
Of course, it's too early to give an answer to this fundamental question. I'm engaged with Tito, who is participating to this meeting, to check whether it's possible to use these tools in order to understand what we did in Italy in a long-run policy for local development. And we shall see something more precise in 6 months, not before.
Okay. Well, thanks, and definitely, I mean, I would be interested in maybe exchanging more in the near future, as we are just now starting this process, and I mean, we can learn a lot from your experience, especially from the theoretical development part that I was trying to look at from the website. That although it doesn't work very well, some pages cannot be loaded. For your information.
Okay, fine.
From the website of Emergence by Design. You mean?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay, so we will check it. Thank you.
Anyway, when the platform is ready, I hope we can work together and see whether you can use it for your purposes.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Especially, I'm very interested in the social network analysis you said you have performed. Actually, this is an additional question, then I will stop it. Are you doing this social network analysis, let's say, on a single initiative, or you also can imagine making an analysis of, let's say, initiative in a specific policy area or in a specific area, country, for example?
Well, we have on board two teams. The first one is led by Guy Melançon, and the second one by Roberto Serra, who are developing, say, the algorithm or the theories behind this kind of representation. And we do hope to have really new tools proposed by them in doing not a traditional, but a social network analysis and representation linked to our language, to our purposes.
Okay,
yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. Now I have a question myself. As an evaluator, I base my evaluation on always on a set of criteria, whether it's evaluation of innovation or evaluation of technology. Which are the criteria on which dynamic evaluation is based?
Maybe you must be a little bit more precise, and I let the floor to Valentina not to speak all the time.
Yeah, I mean, how do you assess whether an innovation is going towards a result that is socially sustainable or otherwise?
Yes, this is a good question, although it's really broad. I mean, when you said that you use always the same criteria to evaluate any kind of project and so on, for me it looks quite strange, because first of all we have to understand who this project or process policy is oriented to. So we have to include, for example, indicators that refer also to the people that we are thinking to affect with our policy or with our project. So I would say that the criteria are variable and depend always on that are always very specific and cannot be otherwise. So the idea is that you start from the criteria that are in the mind, let's say, of the policymaker, because there are. I mean, when you design a policy, you have objectives, expected results, and so on. And so you take into consideration this one, but then you also try to grasp and understand what are the other hidden, let's say, the other target, and what are the expected results, for example, of the target, imagine of a policy. So I think that the criteria are always a negotiation between at least these two sides of the people that are involved, for example, in a project because they are designing it, and the people that will be affected by it. So criteria have always to contain at least this ambivalence, this plurality, let's say.
Okay, thanks a lot. Is there any question from anybody in the audience?
While waiting for new questions, I want to stress the point of narratives. So whenever a group of listeners or participants to a process can realize and share by analyzing the feedback about their experience that they were performing a story that was different from, say, the common sense, the traditional pattern of evolution of a situation, that's the better way for describing an innovation process.
Thank you.
That means that by using the platform, we wanted to show the people participating to a policy, to policy making, to designers, etc., that the story they were expecting and probably is, say, fitted in the tradition of a community, changed direction. So implied a change in the identity of the characters, in their actions, and in the interpretation of what they did. And when you can show this evolution, and in line with some ideas about the resilience or say the positive evolution of a system, then you can give a feedback to all the participants in terms of innovation, not only concerning say the technical results of a particular process.
Thanks a lot. Margherita would like to say something. Margherita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I want to go back to an observation by Valentina. When she was presenting the various steps of this application, she was commenting on the fact that it would be easier if we could select the relevant people, agents, to be described in the mapping step. And I would suggest that this is obviously would be the case, but what emerges when we analyze this processes is exactly that the relevant people are those that we that emerge from the analysis. It's very difficult to imagine that we can assess ab initio who are the relevant people or the relevant organizations. In my experience, this is one of the most interesting outcome of an analysis. So I would suggest to consider this problem, because otherwise we lose the many difficulties in using the web platform. I don't know if it is clear, but
no, it's very clear, and it's something that we have been we have been thinking about deeply, and probably I expressed myself not properly before, because we take into consideration all. Ideally.
Hello.
Disappeared.
Hello. She disappeared. Okay. Anyway, Tito Bianchi asked to talk. So, Tito, please, the floor is yours. Tito.
We were like in a kind of mist.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Valentina, you fall down. You have to wait.
Okay.
You want to give back
I was saying.
Okay. I should have.
I was saying that the point stressed by Margherita is something that we have been addressing for long, and that is still crucial for us. So we are still looking both at the, let's say, the core agents, so the initial core agents. So, for example, the designer of a project are the one that we name as the one that are, let's say, the initiator or something. But we do not forget that there are other voices emerging. This is something. This is the idea to identify the core agents. It's just at the very beginning, to start from somewhere and not to get lost from the very beginning. It's simply this. With the idea of the platform that we are developing, and the idea to focus on the narratives is exactly for this purpose, to be able to detect in time if together with, let's say, a kind of a guiding narrative, or a narrative that is dominant and prevailing, and that is, let's say, orienting the process, there are other that are entering. But we start, let's say, from detecting the one that is influencing the most, or the one that is emerging from the first stage, and then we obviously take into consideration also all the other. It's for us, it's quite obvious that it has to be like this. That is to be grounded, and yeah, that's all.
Okay, thanks a lot. Tito, could you please?
Hello, everyone. I am a little bit confused, but this is certainly a good sign that I'm facing something new that I I have to learn from. So I want to make a couple of sparse comments. It seems to me that this method is a method that is being introduced to identify something changing, to detect change, and in this sense it can be used for evaluation purposes, but it's certainly broader in its aims. When I look at, I think I want to rephrase something that I think Francesco Moredo was asking. In a sense, when we think in evaluation terms, we want to know if something desirable is happening or not. And so I think if you change the method, you cannot change something fundamental about evaluation that has to make a value judgment about the change that you have detected. This is what you were calling criteria for evaluation. We don't want only to characterize some change, but we want to make a judgment whether this change is positive and if it responds to the initial intentions of the policymaker. So in this sense, I want to see this at work in reality, but what I suspect, I may be wrong, but what I suspect is that a big chunk of the evaluation, the part that makes the value judgment, will look more traditional than, more similar to the traditional evaluations that we observe now, even if the method is different. I don't know if I've been clear.
Oh, this is clear. It's a risk, and from this point of view, I suggest you and to the other participants to have a look at the Manifesto for Social Innovation produced by David Lane, because in that document you can find, say, the principles that we have in mind when we approach evaluation by using this kind of tool. And in that perspective, we hope by following those principles to reduce the risk to perform in a new way, say, traditional assessments processes or patterns. You're right. Okay.
May I add something to the question made by Tito? my first question to you, my first answer to you would be, when you refer to criteria, you name value, the value judgment. And so I would ask you, not just whose values, because this is something that is quite, common in social sciences to of this judgment, who is defining values for who. So I think this is something that we have to think about. But the other thing is, when we set the criteria and we say that these are the criteria, for example, I don't know, performance criteria and so on. Don't you think that after a while people will be trained enough and well aware that you are judging them, for example, on, I don't know, imagine the resources spent to build, I don't know, Paolo before was referring to the infrastructure in the south of Italy. And you say, okay, a criteria for the evaluation is, I don't know, seeing how they have spent the resources that I have given them, okay, in building infrastructure, and what kind, and if they were, I don't know, energy efficient, and so on. And people learn a lot that you are expecting from them exactly this. They know, they are very well aware of the criteria you are setting, and they are trying, to accomplish them, even if they are not the value, the real value they are oriented to. I have seen, for example, in the southern Italy, a lot of investment in things that are of nonsense and non-use. For example, photovoltaic plants and so on, just because the criteria set by a policy was energy efficiency and the use of renewable energy and so on. So people were neither questioning if this was something they were really in need of. Okay, so I think when we think about the criteria, we should be also aware that these criteria, once are set, are also a trap. Okay, so this is something that I think, so I think that it has to be more negotiated than we usually do. Otherwise, we will be always in front of something that we cannot really understand why it's happening this. I'm putting all this money on this, the criteria, the feasibility criteria, the sustainability criteria are these, and these criteria are met, but something is still not working. And this is because people understood very well what we want from them, but they are not reflecting on the narrative, for example, that they are playing, and if it is really a narrative, for example, of change or of development, or if it is something that is really addressing the need they have, or simply they are accomplishing something just because the criteria say like this. I don't know if I was clear enough.
Can I make a two-sentence reply?
Sure.
No, the point is, okay, you detect some a structural change, an innovation, something moving, the narrative changing, but then you have to decide if this is something you want, if it's a good innovation, or innovations can be bad, you know. I just think that it's not something that, if you are in the realm of evaluation, you cannot skip that answering. You cannot perform your role if you're not saying something about if this change is desirable or not, irrespective of what the criteria you choose to make this judgment. Important for me is that you make those criteria clear to everyone, so that you can, other people can falsify your statement and say, no, based on my criteria, based on your criteria, this change is positive. Based on my criteria, which are different, the change is not equally good. But so this is my point.
What's the process that is the than saying this is an 8 or a 9? It's more important to understand what's the process that is going on, and I don't know. I
understand the point of view of a public officer, as Tito is, who has to be precise, says, in terms of not. I don't want to say objective criteria, but I understand what he means. We have to carefully think about this kind of problems, not only sharing David's principles, but doing something more. I think this is a key point to think about. Okay, thanks a lot for your intervention. I think we might approach the end of the webinar. So this is the first of a series of 2 webinars on the Emergence by Design project. The next webinar, which will take place in the following weeks, it will be more centered on the tools, the ICT tools that can be used for dynamic evaluation. But anyway, we are going to discuss also this with the other partners of the project. And if you want to know more about the project, please refer to the website emergencebydesign.org.